Ever get that feeling, that feeling like the world's gone kind of, I don't know, weird?
Yeah.
Well, this deep dive is not going to make you feel any calmer.
Okay.
We're tuning into these conversations, like think scrambled radio waves, little pieces of something bigger, all in this document, just called pasted text.
Yeah. It's like somebody just handed us a box of microcassette recordings.
Oh, wow.
No labels, nothing, no names, just voices. And like a lot of anxiety swirling around in these conversations, like a lot of anxiety about the future.
Yeah, you got that right. We're talking end of days, prophecies, people suspicious of the government, even some unsettling views on Haitian immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's like a prepper mentality from some of these voices.
Yeah. And what I find really fascinating is how they're interpreting like current events, economic uncertainty, all the political tensions, even new technologies. They're seeing it all through the lens of biblical prophecy, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, the Bible verses are flying left and right. Lots of debate about the rapture, who's going to get left behind in the tribulation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It highlights how much our belief systems can shape the way that we understand the world, especially during like upheaval. These speakers, they're searching for answers in a world that's, I think we can all agree, is pretty uncertain right now.
And get this, one speaker even talks about drones. Drones being used to like detect people who have the mark of the beast. It's like straight out of a movie, a dystopian sci-fi film, but with a very real fear behind it.
It's a chilling thought, right? You've got these ancient prophecies and like cutting edge technology kind of coming together. And I think it speaks to this very modern anxiety, this idea that we're losing control to these forces that we don't really fully understand.
Definitely makes you think. And it's not just technology that they're worried about. There's this like deep suspicion of authority, whispers about government conspiracies,
Yeah.
There's even talk about needing to barter for goods because money, actual money, won't mean anything.
Yeah. And that's where things get a little, I don't know, uncomfortable, I guess. You start to hear some pretty disturbing stereotypes about Haitian immigrants being connected to crime, voodoo, things like that.
Right. And it's like this stark reminder that when fear and uncertainty take hold, it can fuel prejudice and scapegoating. Like when times get tough, people start looking for someone to blame.
Sadly, history is full of those examples. But you know what makes this collection even more fascinating, even more compelling to me, is we get these glimpses into individual lives.
Right.
Amongst all this grand anxiety about the apocalypse, about societal collapse, we get these really personal stories, and it's really something.
Right, like this one conversation where there's this grandfather, he's beside himself because his grandson has been in a motorcycle accident. And get this, they chose not to call the police.
Now, why would they do that?
Huh.
See, that suggests this profound distrust in authority. It's like they believe that they need to handle things within their own community. I don't know, it adds another layer to this whole world that we're uncovering.
Exactly. Like they're already living in this world where they just can't rely on anyone, no traditional systems of support.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if that distrust is a symptom of these anxieties that we've been talking about. Like, are they already preparing for a future where those systems, those traditional systems, have already broken down?
Now, that is a chilling thought. Speaking of chilling thoughts, we also hear from this guy. His name is Crocus. He's battling addiction. And he is facing some really difficult challenges, really raw and honest stuff.
His story is, wow. Yeah, it's relapse, guilt, just this desperate search for forgiveness. And it's just this really potent reminder that even if the world is ending, people are still grappling with being human.
It really is something. His story really, I don't know, it stayed with me. But here's where things take a turn. Sprinkled in throughout all these conversations are these snippets that sound like they're straight out of a 1950s science fiction radio drama.
It's true, yeah. It's like someone took Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, and spliced it into all these very real anxieties about the future. We hear whispers of space exploration, encounters with alien civilizations.
Even, wait for it, a post-apocalyptic world overrun by super intelligent mice. Mice. Descended from lab experiments. Who knew rodents could be so terrifying?
Right.
It's like, I don't know, these little snippets are giving us this glimpse into their imaginations, right? Like, it's a way to process this fear through fiction.
Or could it be something more than that? Could it be, a deeper fascination with the unknown?
Yeah.
Like a desire to escape the anxieties of the present by imagining these wilder possibilities, even wilder than what they're already talking about?
It's a good question. It really is. What do you think out there, listeners? Are these just for entertainment, or is there something more? Are they revealing something deeper about the psychology of these speakers? It's like they're wrestling with these big questions, like what does it even mean to be human in a world that feels like it's on the brink?
Right.
What happens when, like, technology just surpasses our control? These sci-fi scenarios, they're out there, but maybe it's their way of, I don't know, exploring those fears.
It's an interesting thought. It really is. And it's not just the sci-fi stuff. Remember the grandfather, the one with the grandson in the accident?
Well, how could I forget that?
They decided not to call the police.
Yeah, it's like a pivotal detail. You know what I mean? It's like they're already living by a totally different set of rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests this world where trust, like basic trust in institutions, is gone. And they've got to rely on, like, their own communities for support and for safety.
Yeah.
It's a recurring thing in these conversations, would you say?
For sure.
This breakdown of, like, societal structures, this need for self-reliance.
It's like survivalist almost. And you can see why when they're so worried about the future. If you think the world is going to fall apart, you're going to prepare to be more isolated, to be self-sufficient.
Exactly. Like they're mentally rehearsing for this future where, all those systems, the things we take for granted, they're gone. And that fear of technology, right?
Yeah.
It's in those sci-fi snippets too, that fear of technology going too far.
Totally. Like mice taking over the world. Those alien encounters, like they're looking at, like, what are the consequences if science just goes unchecked?
It's a theme that's been around forever, right? This idea that what we create, our own creations, could end up destroying us.
Right.
But here, it's all mixed up with their religious beliefs, which is interesting. This whole mix of spiritual and technological anxieties all in one.
So we've got biblical prophecy, societal fears, really personal struggles, even imaginative sci-fi. It's a lot. What's, like, the biggest takeaway, Fennell, so far?
I keep coming back to the power of belief. It just highlights how our beliefs, no matter where they come from, religion, culture, our own experiences, they shape how we see the world.
That's a good point. It's like they're all looking at this same uncertain future, but their beliefs give them a way to understand it, Like it gives them meaning in all the chaos.
Exactly. It makes you think about the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
The narratives we use to make sense of our own lives. Like, what happens when those narratives are all fear and uncertainty? What does that do to us? How does that change our choices, our relationships, how we see ourselves even?
Those are big questions. I don't know if I have the answers. But I think what gets me is that even with all this, all the fear, all this uncertainty, there's still this really human need for connection, for hope,
Totally. You see it with Crocus, with his addiction,
Yeah.
the grandfather and his love for his grandson.
Yeah.
Even in their faith, that shared faith, it's that solace they find in believing.
It's a good reminder. Even when you feel like everything is falling apart, there's always that little bit of humanity shining through. And sometimes that's all it takes, just that little flicker to light the way.
Yeah, a powerful message, especially today. I think it's really relevant.
It makes you think, okay, so we've looked at the dark side, right? The fear, the anxiety. But what about the good stuff? What about those moments of light? What can we learn from these people, from how they found meaning, how they found connection with all this uncertainty around them? It's weird, right? They're surrounded by all this doom and gloom, but you keep hearing these moments where they're looking for something to hold on to, reaching out, finding solace.
Yeah, it makes sense, though. It's a human thing, right? When the world feels shaky, we look for solid ground. We turn to our beliefs, to our communities, our friends and family. It's that need to feel grounded.
Absolutely. And for these voices, faith seems like a big part of that. They go back and forth about prophecy, sure, but they find comfort in prayer, in their shared belief. It's like they're looking for guidance, for reassurance from, I don't know, something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, and it reminds you how powerful belief systems can be, especially in a crisis. It's that sense of meaning, of purpose. When things feel overwhelming, those beliefs give you a way to understand what's happening.
It's like even if the road ahead is a mess, their faith gives them a map, And it's not just about answers, is it? It's about connection, too, belonging, feeling like you're not alone, especially when the world feels like it's falling apart.
It's so true. When they talk about faith, it's not just theology. It's about community. Sharing those fears, those hopes with people who get it. Finding comfort in something bigger than just yourself.
Makes you think, what happens to those communities in the future they're imagining? If the world really does go haywire, those bonds, that shared faith, it could be the difference between surviving and, well, not.
It's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if all the things we rely on are gone. the safety net, gone. Those communities, those little pockets of faith and belief, they become lifelines.
We're back to that tribal way of life. Your survival depends on those around you, the people you trust, the people who share your beliefs. And, that idea of resilience, of figuring out how to keep going when everything's uncertain, we see that in Crocus's story, too.
Totally. Addiction, searching for forgiveness, for redemption. It's all about the human spirit. We talk about things falling apart, but even then, there's still that capacity for growth, for change. Even in the darkest times, that's what shines through.
It's a powerful reminder. The world might feel like it's ending, but there's always hope. For healing, for second chances, for finding a way forward.
And isn't that what it all boils down to? In all these conversations and all this chaos and uncertainty, they're searching for meaning, for connection, for hope.
Yeah, and maybe that's what we've been doing too, listening in on these pieces of their lives, those fears and anxieties, but also their resilience, their better moments, the things that remind us that they're human, just like us. It's a lot to take in.
Really is. But it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If this is a glimpse of what could be, what choices can we make now to change the story, to build stronger connections, communities that can weather the storms? How do we face whatever's coming? With courage, with compassion, with that belief in ourselves and each other that lets us keep going.
Those are questions worth thinking about. And on that note, we'll leave you with those thoughts. Find your own answers in the echoes of these conversations. Fascinating, unsettling, and more than a little bit human.